The forest was unnervingly quiet. Every crunch of my boots echoed sharply in the still air, a stark contrast to the lively chatter of the trailhead earlier that day. The sun filtered weakly through the canopy, its orange glow painting the leaves in a surreal, dreamlike hue. I had wandered far from the marked trails, chasing solitude and adventure. Or so I thought. The first sign that something was amiss came in the form of silence. Not the peaceful kind, this was oppressive, like a vacuum that sucked away every natural sound. No rustling of leaves, no bird song. Even my footsteps seemed muffled, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. The more I walked, the heavier the silence became, pressing against my ears, until I swore I could hear my own heartbeat. I saw the door in a clearing, completely out of place. It was a tall, weathered slab of wood framed by a crumbling stone arch. No hinges, no handle. Just a door, inexplicably alone. My pulse quickened as I approached. It looked like a discarded relic, but something about it felt wrong, like it had been waiting for me. The clearing itself seemed unnatural, the grass around the door flat and lifeless, as though it had never known sunlight. The door's surface was riddled with deep gouges, and a strange black residue clung to its edges. I scanned the clearing, half expecting to see someone crouched nearby, laughing at the bizarre prank they'd set up. But the forest was empty, an expanse of shadows and stillness. Even the trees seemed to bend away from the door, their branches twisted in uneasy arcs. "Who puts a door out here?" I whispered, my voice sounding unnaturally loud. The forest gave no answer. The air felt colder as I drew closer, each step heavier than the last. A faint breeze stirred the leaves above, but it carried no warmth, only the faint scent of something metallic and sharp. Curiosity pulled me forward. My hand brushed the damp wood, and I recoiled at the unnatural chill. Then came the sound, a faint, rhythmic tapping from the other side. It was soft at first, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable. I froze, my heart pounding. The logical part of my brain told me to turn around, but my feet stayed planted, as if rooted by the door's inexplicable pull. Each tap seemed to echo in my chest, steady and deliberate, like a heartbeat out of sync with my own. I glanced around, searching for a hidden speaker or some sign of human interference. Nothing. Just trees, their gnarled branches twisted like skeletal fingers reaching for the sky. Even the sky above seemed darker, the sunlight dimming as though the door consumed it. I forced myself to walk away, but the door lingered in my thoughts. The further I moved, the stranger the forest became. The trees grew denser, their trunks warped and knotted in unnatural patterns. The air turned heavy, thick with dampness that clung to my skin. The silence pressed in, amplifying every breath, every step. My compass needle spun uselessly, and every path I took seemed to lead nowhere. After what felt like an hour, I found myself back at the clearing. The door stood exactly as I'd left it, like it had been waiting for me. My stomach churned with unease. I knew I hadn't taken a wrong turn. I'd been careful to track my path. My watch, which had been reliable all day, now sat motionless on my wrist, its hands frozen in place. The tapping started again, louder this time, reverberating through the stillness. The sound was no longer faint, it was insistent, demanding attention, like a knock on the door of a house you wish to avoid. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Hello?" My voice cracked as I called out. No answer, only the relentless tapping. Against every instinct, I stepped closer. The door seemed to pulse, its surface darkening as I approached. I placed both hands on it and pushed. It swung open silently, revealing an abyss of darkness that stretched infinitely. No walls, no floor, just a void that seemed alive, rippling faintly at the edges of my vision. The air that seeped from the opening was icy, carrying with it a smell I couldn't place earthy, but wrong, like soil turned sour. I should have walked away. I should have run. Instead, I stepped through. The air on the other side was frigid, biting at my skin. The ground beneath my boots felt spongy, uneven, as if it shifted with each step. The door slammed shut behind me, the sound echoing in the emptiness. I spun around, heart racing, but the door was gone. There was only darkness, dense and suffocating. It wrapped around me like a living thing, whispering just at the edge of my hearing. Time lost all meaning. My flashlight, reliable until now, flickered weakly before dying entirely. The only light came from faint, shifting glimmers in the distance, like stars in a night sky that didn't belong to this world. I walked toward them, though the ground seemed to stretch infinitely, refusing to bring me closer. My steps grew heavier, as if the darkness itself was dragging me down. The tapping returned, louder and omnipresent. It was joined by other noises, wet slithering, faint scraping, and a low, guttural moan that vibrated in my chest. My breaths came in shallow gasps, panic rising with each sound. I could feel something behind me, its presence a weight against my back. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice trembling. The emptiness swallowed my words. Movement caught my eye. Shadows coalesced from the void, writhing and shifting into grotesque forms. Tall, spindly figures with too many limbs, their faces, if they had any, were voids of utter blackness. They moved with a disjointed, unnatural grace, closing the distance between us. Their limbs twisted impossibly, and every step they took sent a wave of nausea through me. I ran. The ground beneath me shifted, threatening to pull me down with each step. The cacophony of noises grew deafening, drowning out my frantic breaths. I didn't dare look back. My lungs burned, my legs screamed for relief. But I pushed on, driven by pure survival instinct. Every shadow seemed to reach for me, their claw-like hands just grazing my skin. Just when I thought I couldn't go any further, I saw it. The door. It stood alone in the void, glowing faintly. Desperation gave me strength, and I sprinted toward it. One of the shadows lunged, its elongated arm grazing my back. Pain seared through me, sharp and cold, like ice slicing into my skin. The world around me seemed to ripple, the darkness warping into shapes that defied comprehension. I slammed into the door, throwing it open and tumbling through. Light exploded around me, blinding and disorienting. I collapsed onto the forest floor, gasping for air. The door stood behind me, solid and unmoving, its surface eerily silent. The forest, now bathed in late afternoon light, seemed normal again. Birds chirped in the distance, and the oppressive silence was gone. But something was wrong. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone, only to find the screen cracked and lifeless. My backpack was missing. Even the clothes I wore felt unfamiliar, as though they didn't belong to me. I staggered to my feet, scanning the area. The path I'd taken earlier was gone, replaced by unfamiliar terrain. The trees seemed taller, their branches tangled in intricate patterns that blotted out the sky. Then I heard it. The tapping. Slowly I turned. The door was open again, darkness spilling out like smoke. From the shadows something watched me. Two faint, glowing eyes, filled with malice and hunger, locked onto mine. Behind them shapes writhed, their forms barely distinguishable from the shadows they emerged from. I ran, the sound of tapping echoing in my ears, knowing I'd never truly escape. The forest wasn't just alive, it was watching.